This is an introductory course on construction scheduling with the Blender BIM add-on. If you don't have a file, you can find one in the description so you can follow along. So click on Load Project, locate your file and hit on Load Project again. I won't go over the interface, there's a couple of videos I've made on that. But we're gonna tweak this little BIM workspace we have here by putting our mouse on the top there and dragging down. We'll go to the Costing and Scheduling tab. Whenever we select an object, we want to look at its properties. With your mouse on the top right of this panel, drag it up so that we can see it on the top. We're going to start by creating a work plan. Press on plus, edit its name to be Engineering and Construction. Then under Work Schedules, we'll add a new work schedule and we'll call it EC. The type will be planned. We'll hit OK. This will only refresh once you scroll and I have no idea why. Under Work Calendars, we're going to press on plus as well. We'll edit the name of this calendar to be 8 to 5. We can then enable editing this work calendar and we'll add a work time. We'll call it 8 to 5. This work time will be applied from the 1st of 2023 until the 1st of 2027. And we'll add a weekly time of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And we'll be working from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Then from 1 p.m. to 17 p.m. See how you can do it with different formats? Let's apply this. Now I'll add an exception time for our holidays. So let's add a yearly unspecified date and we'll set it as the Christmas holidays. December. And this exception will run from the 1st of 2023 until the 1st of 2027. Now, we can start adding a few tasks, so we'll click on Enable Editing Tasks. One thing we may also need to do is assign our work schedule to our work plan. We're going to add a summary task, call it Design, Construction, and Procurement. With this task selected, I'll press on Add here to add a subtask. I'll then name it Design. I can carry on creating my work breakdown structure in Blender BIM, or just import a file through File, Import, and here you have different formats to choose from. Still with my summary task selected, I'll add tasks, procurement, and then construction. Okay, so I've created a basic work breakdown structure to describe the work packages to build this house. Now, for each work package, I'd like to split this by building story. And I'm a bit lazy and I don't want to do this for every task, so I'm going to give you a little handy script. What we'll do is either go to the scripting environment or put your mouse in a corner right here, press Shift, and then drag your mouse and it'll create an extra panel. Then on the top left, press on this little icon and change it to text editor. Then open the script I'm providing through either open here or just write it from scratch. Okay, so if you press on the pencil here, enable editing task attributes, you're going to get this checkboxes here. And if you select some of these, so let's say I'd like to split this by building stories. What this script will do is it'll get all the checked tasks and then all the building stories, and then we'll filter them such that we can get the first floor and ground floor, and then we'll just split these tasks and we'll also assign them a name. So hit run. The next step is to create sequence relationships. For this, we'll press on this operator to enable editing the task sequence. For any active task, you can give it predecessors or successors. So we'll say that the first floor is its successor. Below here, you'll find the list of successors and predecessors. You can jump in between predecessors and successors. So after the first floor masonry, I'd like to do some MEP on the first floor. And after the ground floor, I'll do my electrical ground floor. Now, once I'm done with electricity, I need to do some mechanical. When I'm doing my mechanical installation, I'd also like to do my plumbing, but this time we'll edit the sequence to be start to start. We'll also add a time lag of 1 day. You can edit the time lag, it can also be negative. So once you're finished creating the relevant tasks and relationships, the next step is to add durations. For this, we're going to look at the schedule columns operator. We'll enable it and then click on set up default columns. You can also add the columns you wish to by pressing on plus here. And we'll take this opportunity to add a calendar to the first task. We'll press on this enable editing task calendar. And there it pops up. We only have one calendar, so we'll add it. We'll press on cancel and see how the other subtasks have all inherited this calendar. Now, we need to look at the task that kicks off our project. I set it as this ground floor slab. It has no predecessors and we'll give it a date of the 1st of January 2023. Then we'll give it a duration of 5 days. For the other tasks, we can now only give durations. Keep on adding durations. So I got tired of adding these durations manually. So here's a little script that will add a duration for any task that has either a successor or a predecessor. So after you hit run, all your schedule will be populated. Our next step is to assign building objects to our tasks. So for this, I've prepared my view to have two properties panels here. The bottom one will show my tasks and the top one will go to project overview, and under search here, we'll start adding search filters. We'll also put our mouse on the top left here and click and drag down. Then we'll turn the top one into a properties panel as well. With this top panel here, we'll be looking at object information and materials, etc. So we can easily add filters depending on the objects we have. So I'd like to add these ground floor walls and their masonry. So I'm going to add a class filter, and here I'll write IFC wall. I'm also going to add a location filter to only select my ground floor walls. Then I'll add a material filter. I need a material which has the name brick. So the layer set has the name brick, and we'll search for all of this. But first click on empty space, then click on search, and there we go. We have all these walls. Now I want to assign them to a task. I can either find it here and click on it manually or look for it with this search tool. Here's my masonry ground floor. Make this a tad bit smaller. Then I'll add it as an output because that's what my process will output. I can carry on doing this exercise. Search. Okay. So this model is quite detailed. There is this waterproofing modeled as a covering. So I've added the horizontal waterproofing, and now I can add a second search group. When I hit search, I'm now selecting all of the correct waterproofing. I can then add it to my roof tasks, and there we go. So for my windows, I have a window selected, and I have this window activity selected as well for the ground floor. On the object metadata, I'll look for all my windows, and then on this same grouping and filtering panel, there's a filter selection. You can filter by container. And I'm only going to select my ground floor windows. Then I'll assign them. So carry on assigning building objects, and let's now move on to resources. Let's turn our top workspace area into costing and scheduling here and toggle the resources panel. Click on the pencil icon to load your resources, and then just add a subcontractor. We'll call this subby, We'll add a crew. We'll call it masonry. Then maybe I'll add a labor resource here. Call it hollow blocks 100 mil. For the moment, we'll just stop here and give this a productivity to demonstrate how this works. Then we'll import a CSV with a lot more detail. So let's press on plus to add productivity data and then press on this little pencil. Then you can add, let's say, 1 square meter, and the quantity name we'll need to take off is net side area for my base QTO for my walls. And let's just say it takes us 30 minutes per 1 square meter area. Okay. Now, I can look for my masonry ground floor, select my task, and press on plus to add the resource. This will add it on our tree here. And when I select this resource, it tells me it has an inherited productivity rate. I can override it or just keep the parent to make my calculations. And because this task will output all of these products here, and these products have the QTO wall-based quantity of net side area, the one I'm taking off, well, I can now press on this calculate resource work, and it's going to tell me the man hours I need to execute this activity. So let's say I want to constrain this. So I'm going to lock this, and now when I change my schedule usage, let's say to 8 resources, it's going to tell me how long this task is going to take. So let's say I only have 2 masons, it's going to take 7 days. We'll now disable editing the resources and we'll load a CSV. Okay, so here's a little template. I'm providing this under consult-bim.com. You can tweak this to your liking. We're going to look at masonry. So we'll create a crew and a laborer. Underneath it, there'll be a laborer and this team right here. So here we have the cost, which is per hour and not per day. With a typical team with this kind of usage, we need 1.17 hours to produce 1 square meter of hollow blocks. And in IFC, we need to take off the gross side area. So if you'd like to change these, you need to make sure it matches the quantity name you need to take off. Make sure to save this as CSV and then click on import resources and load your resource spreadsheet. So I've deleted the old ones I have, and here I'm just going to look for masonry hollow block. Now I'm going to assign this resource here. So I'll press on plus. So I've assigned all of my resources to this activity. I can do the same for my first floor. So when I have the parent of these 2 resources selected, I can press on calculate resource work. And so this will tell me the total man hours I need. For the ground floor, I need 85 man hours. And on the first floor, 100 man hours. So after you're done calculating all of your resource work, here's something really nice. When we constrain the schedule work, and make sure you do it for all of them. So for all my ground floor, I'm going to lock this. So let's see how many resources I need for 7 days first. Okay. So I need a lot of masons, it seems. Quite a few laborers as well. Not so much of crane time. What I'll start doing now is maybe change the duration of my task and see how many resources that requires. So for a 5-day duration, I need 34 masons, 17 laborers. Maybe this is too much and our site is going to be quite packed because this is quite small. It's a bit unrealistic, so probably this task should be something like 15 days. And we're starting to get something more reasonable here, perhaps even 20 days. Okay, so here's how we can go into quite some detail and link our resources to our tasks parametrically. And the last parametric link we need to demonstrate is with costing. So before we go into a lot of detail into costing, let's just see how this works. So these resources had a cost, as we said. And so we can now go to our cost schedules panel. We'll add a cost schedule. We'll call it EC1, and this needs to be a priced bill of quantities. Then I'll press on this enable editing cost item, and I'll add a summary cost, and I'll just select this for the moment. And with my task selected down here, I can assign the task. And here I have this masonry ground floor activity, which has these resources and it's linked to all these products. So I can now just press on calculate cost item resource, and it tells me this task will require £2,900 because I have a project currency. In the next part, we're going to be delving into how to create construction animations with the schedule that we've created. Okay, so at this point, it's good to save your IFC project and load it in a fresh Blender session. So far, everything we've done has been in native IFC, so we don't need to actually use the Blender file whilst we were working. But going forward, we may have to save some extra stuff in our Blender file. This may be for temporarily overriding materials, adding Blender context objects, linking Blender files together, etc. Let's tweak our workspace again. We'll put our mouse in this corner here and click and drag. Then we'll go to costing and scheduling on both panels, and we'll enable editing our work schedule, and we'll look at animation tools here. So here with these animation tools, we have the option to look at a snapshot, so at a specific date. So let's say I want to look at something on the 5th of March 2023. I'll click on create snapshot. And this is the situation at that date. Maybe I'd like to hide my spaces. So that's what the 5th of March looks like. And so to create a date range visualization, we're going to set some dates, so a start date and an end date. Pressing on the guess button, we'll look at all your tasks in your schedule, and we'll find tasks which have product assignments, and if they do, we'll try to derive the start and end dates of the visualization. But you can tweak this to your liking as well to match the start of your project, which here it seems is the 5th of December. So then you can change your speed settings. So let's say we want a duration-based animation where 1 second in this animation represents 1 week in reality. So this is a fairly good rhythm, but you can tweak it to your liking. Let's say even 2 seconds. Then we can hit create animation. And if you'd like to tweak the appearance of the animation, you're going to have to load the animation color scheme and change these to your liking. So at the moment, all of my tasks are set as not defined, so I can edit the attributes. So for the backfill activity, the predefined type of my task should be construction. And if I'd like to copy this to a couple of other different tasks, I can select the tasks and hit on copy attribute. Then I'll stop editing this. And so for my tasks which have this predefined type as construction, it's going to appear as such. And since I have most of them as not defined and I don't want to have to keep doing this, I'll just change the color of not defined to green. And I hope that you're being more concise. And there'll be more tutorials to look at all the other types of tasks and what they actually mean. I'll change my construction to pink and not defined to pink. Then I'll hit save scheme and I'll write pink scheme. Okay. I can select between my different schemes here and I can create an animation. And next, put your mouse in this corner, click and drag up. We'll change this to timeline. Now we can press spacebar and our animation will start rolling out. Yeah, my masonry takes a lot of time to be built, huh? Let's hit pause. We're going to add a camera. Then we'll activate our camera with 0. Now with shift and tilde, we're going to fly and we'll go inside our project. There is a timeline object that has been created, which is basically a date. and we can't see it too well here. So what we'll do is, with that object selected, we'll go to Object Constraint and we'll copy the rotation of our target, which will be the 4D camera. So it has now copied the rotation, and we'll just position this somewhere down there. And then I'll also select my text and select my camera. Then I'll hit Control P to parent this date to my camera, so whenever I move my camera, the date will move along with it. I can change the appearance of this object, so timeline. So go to Object Properties, Viewport Display, and change the color to black or whatever you'd like. If you'd like to create a different animation, at the moment I think I have cycles. I'll go to Render Properties, Cycles, I'll change it to Workbench, and maybe Matte Cap, Object Color as before, with Backface, Shadows, Cavity, more ridge, an outline being black. Now we can better see our things. Let's remove the grids and whatnot. This date is too far out from our camera, so it's not too visible, so we'll need to hit G and position it at my camera. Now when I look at this, the date is too big, so I'll select the text and hit S to scale it down. And oops, now without any of my snaps, I'll move it right there. Let's look at where it's positioned. It's not too far from my camera, but I could probably make it closer. There it is. Now I'll move it there, scale, and I think this is quite reasonable. Whenever I move my camera, it shouldn't be hidden by anything else. Okay, so that's for our date. So what if we'd like to add some taskbars? And this can get quite crowded, so there may be different ways that you need to set up your workspace. So let's split this in two. And we're not going to look at our camera here. What we'll do is we'll click on taskbars and enable selection. And back here, we'll select the task we'd like to show a taskbar for. With all these tasks selected, I can hit on Create Animation, and we'll have this new collection created called Bar Visual, with an empty object and all of our text and bars underneath here. At the moment, this is too big. Let's look at this from a top view and move it. Just change the viewport shading to black or grayish, I don't know. And when we hit play, maybe you can have a camera that moves on top here and it travels across these dates, and you can create a nice montage. On the left hand side here, we're on workbench mode, and maybe we want to look at our object materials. So we'll change this to texture or material. You can also look at it through Eevee, which is also pretty fast. Change your scene lights and scene world. We can also add some ambient occlusion, some bloom. So play around with these options. You can also check more tutorials on Blender and have fun.